They said no black nanny could survive a week in the house of ruthless billionaire Damian Steele. His 3 spoiled, out-of-control triplets had destroyed every single one before her. But when Maya Carter walked in, she didn't just survive, she turned his empire upside down. This isn't just a story about a billionaire and a nanny. It's about race, resilience, and the way people underestimate women, especially black women, until she makes the impossible look effortless. Maya isn't here for pity, she isn't here for charity. She came for a job, but what she found was love, war, betrayal, and a battle against prejudice in the richest mansion of New York. Before we dive into this powerful, emotional, and controversial journey of Maya, Damian, and the triplets, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss another heart-stopping billionaire romance story like this one. Now, let's begin. The iron gates of the Steele estate towered before Maya Carter like the walls of a kingdom determined to keep outsiders at bay. She clutched the strap of her worn leather bag a little tighter as the chauffeur slowed the black SUV to a halt. Beyond the wrought iron gate stretched a driveway so long it looked as if it could swallow a football field whole. The Steele mansion wasn't just a house, it was a fortress dripping with wealth, power, and arrogance. "Miss Carter, we're here," the driver said curtly, as if the words tasted sour in his mouth. Maya drew in a steadying breath. She had worked in childcare for years, daycare centers, private homes, even night shifts in crowded nurseries. But never had she been asked to step into a place like this. And certainly not under these circumstances. The whispers had reached her before she even applied. No black nanny ever lasted with Damian Steele's children. Not a single one. Some said it was the children themselves, the triplets who had run off every caretaker within days. Others blamed the father, a man so cold he might as well have been carved from marble. Either way, the position had become infamous. A cursed job for anyone foolish enough to take it. But Maya wasn't like the others. She couldn't afford to be. Rent was due. Her mother's medical bills were piling up. And deep in her chest, beyond the exhaustion and fear, something in her burned hotter than desperation. Defiance. As the SUV pulled up before the mansion's front steps, Maya squared her shoulders. "Let's see if I'm the one who breaks." The front doors opened before she even knocked. A tall man in a perfectly pressed black suit stepped into the doorway, his expression stiff, his gray eyes cold and assessing. Damian Steele. Even photographs in the tabloids hadn't done him justice. His presence was commanding, intimidating, the kind of man who made entire boardrooms go silent when he entered. 6'2", broad-shouldered, his tailored suit fitting like it had been stitched directly onto him. He looked at her as though she were a misplaced piece of furniture he didn't have time to deal with. "You're late," he said flatly. Maya checked her watch. She was 5 minutes early. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Something in his eyes warned her. Damian Steele wasn't a man who cared for explanations. "I'm here for the nanny position," she said evenly, refusing to let her voice waver. He looked her over slowly, from the coils of her dark hair pulled into a neat bun to the scuffed heels of her shoes. His lip curled, almost imperceptibly. "You've heard the rumors, haven't you?" "I've heard a lot of things," Maya said, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Good." His tone sharpened. "Then you know no black nanny has lasted here longer than a week. Some didn't even make it through the first night." The words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. Most people would have turned and run. But Maya tilted her chin upward, her jaw tight. "Then I suppose I'll be the first." For a flicker of a second, something crossed his face. Amusement? Intrigue? It vanished almost immediately. Damian stepped aside. "We'll see." Inside, the mansion was cathedral-like. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and every piece of furniture looked too expensive to touch. But the air was thick, suffocating, as if laughter had been scrubbed from the walls long ago. "Follow me," Damien ordered. He led her through corridors lined with oil paintings and into a massive sitting room. 3 children lounged across velvet couches, their golden brown curls a mirror of their father's, their eyes sharp and mischievous. Nicholas, Nathan, and Naomi, the Steele triplets, 8 years old yet carrying themselves like royalty, bored with their court. The moment they saw Maya, their faces lit with identical devilish grins. "Oh, another one," Nathan drawled. "This one won't last either," Naomi chimed in. Nicholas tilted his head, smirking. "Place your bets, guys." "I give her 2 days." They burst into laughter. Maya raised her brows. 2 days, huh? Bold prediction." She stepped closer, her gaze steady. "But let's make one thing clear. I'm not here to be your entertainment. I'm here to take care of you, whether you like it or not." The triplets blinked, thrown off by her calm defiance. From behind, Damien folded his arms. "Don't waste your energy, Miss Carter. They'll eat you alive, just like they did the others." Maya turned, her eyes locking with his. "Children act out when they don't have boundaries. Maybe it's not them who failed all the nannies. Maybe it's you." The silence that followed was electric. Damien's jaw tightened. No one spoke to him that way. No one. But Maya didn't waver. The triplets exchanged wide-eyed looks, half shocked, half delighted. Someone had just stood up to their father in front of them and lived to tell the tale. "Interesting," Nicholas muttered under his breath. Damien's gray eyes narrowed as sharp as steel. "Very well, Miss Carter. Prove me wrong, if you can." Maya smiled tightly. "Watch me." Hours later, when the sun dipped low behind the estate, Maya stood in the children's playroom surrounded by chaos. Toys scattered across the floor, juice spilled on the rug, books ripped from their shelves. The triplets had been testing her since the moment she arrived. They locked her in the pantry. They switched the sugar with salt in her tea. They even tried to trick her into thinking the dog had bitten Nathan's hand. But she didn't crack. Instead, she stood tall, hands on her hips. "If you're done with your little show, maybe we can actually play something that doesn't end with me cleaning up your mess." Nathan crossed his arms. "You're not fun." "You're right," Maya said. "I'm not here to be fun. I'm here to make sure you don't grow up into spoiled little monsters who think the world revolves around them." Nicholas gaped. "Did she just—" "Yes, she did," Naomi whispered. The 3 of them exchanged a look Maya couldn't quite decipher. For a moment, they almost looked impressed. And then, with identical grins, they turned back to her. "Oh, this is going to be fun," Nicholas said. Maya's stomach sank. She knew that look. The triplets weren't done. They were only just beginning. And Damien Steele, watching from the doorway, smirked faintly to himself. "Let's see how long you last, Miss Carter." The triplets are plotting to break her before the week is up, and Maya doesn't yet realize how far they're willing to go. Maya Carter had worked with children before. She had seen tantrums that could last an hour, kids who refused to eat, kids who cried themselves sick. But nothing could have prepared her for Damien Steele's triplets. It started the moment breakfast was served. The dining hall looked like something straight out of a palace. Polished mahogany table stretching 10 feet long, silver cutlery gleaming under a chandelier that dripped crystals like icicles. Maya had barely sat down with the children before the games began. "I don't want scrambled eggs, I want pancakes," Naomi whined, folding her arms with a pout so practiced it could win an Oscar. Nicholas smirked. "I want both. And I want them now." Nathan leaned back in his chair, feet on the table. "I don't want anything. I just want her gone." He jabbed his fork in Maya's direction. Maya raised an eyebrow, calm as stone. "Well, here's the deal. This is what the chef made, so this is what you're eating. Pancakes, eggs, or nothing. Take your pick." The 3 of them froze, staring at her as if she had spoken in an alien language. "You can't talk to us like that," Naomi snapped. "I just did." Maya sipped her water. Nicholas leaned forward, eyes narrowing with mischief. Do you know who we are? 3 kids who will get hungry if they keep running their mouths instead of eating, Maya replied dryly. For a moment, silence. And then, chaos. The triplets erupted like a storm. Nicholas tipped over his orange juice, sending it spilling across the table and dripping onto Maya's lap. Naomi threw her napkin into the air, shrieking as if she'd seen a spider. Nathan grabbed his plate of eggs and launched it across the table like a frisbee. It smashed against the wall, yolk dripping down the cream wallpaper. Maya shot to her feet, steadying her breath. She had 2 choices, lose her temper or take control. She chose control. Enough! Her voice cracked through the dining hall like a whip. The triplets froze mid-chaos, startled. No nanny had ever dared to raise her voice at them like that. Maya stood tall, eyes blazing. You think this is funny? Wasting food? Making a mess? Do you know how many kids go to bed hungry every single night? The kids blinked, taken aback. They weren't used to guilt, especially from someone who looked at them like they were human beings, not royalty. You will clean this up, Maya said firmly. Every drop, and you will sit down and eat what's in front of you without another word. Or there will be consequences. What consequences? Nicholas challenged, smirking again, though less certain this time. Maya leaned forward, her voice dropping. Try me. They didn't clean up, at least not willingly. By the time Maya marched them into the kitchen, handed them sponges and stood guard while they half-heartedly wiped juice off the marble floor, their smugness had started to fade. But the war wasn't over. By noon, the triplets had already set 3 more traps. They sprinkled flour over the stair railing, hoping she'd brush against it. They locked her in the laundry room until she picked the lock with a bobby pin, striding out without so much as a scratch. They even filled water balloons and tried to ambush her in the garden. But Maya had grown up dodging worse than water balloons. She ducked, dodged, and with lightning speed snatched one balloon midair and hurled it back, soaking Nicholas from head to toe. The triplets gasped. You hit him! Naomi shrieked. No! Maya said, folding her arms. I played back. You wanted a game? I can play too. For the first time, Nathan's grin looked genuine. She's kind of cool, he whispered. Shut up, Naomi hissed. But it was too late. A tiny crack had formed in their armor. By afternoon, the housekeeper, Mrs. Delgado, caught Maya in the hallway, shaking her head. They'll break you, Miss Carter, she said in her thick Spanish accent. Every nanny leaves crying, every single one. You should walk away before it gets worse. Maya smiled tightly. I didn't come here to quit. From behind, Damien's voice slid into the air like ice water. She's right. You're wasting your time, Miss Carter. Maya turned to face him, her spine straight. Damien looked every bit the untouchable billionaire in his navy suit, a phone pressed to his ear, papers clutched in his other hand. His expression was unreadable. Your children need someone who doesn't back down, Maya said, her voice even. His gray eyes flicked to hers, cold and sharp. And you think that's you? I don't think, Maya said. I know. Damien's jaw tightened, his gaze lingering on her for a beat too long before he muttered into his phone and stalked away. Maya exhaled slowly. She had survived breakfast, traps, and battles of will. But deep in her gut, she knew this was only the beginning. That evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the mansion, Maya stood outside the children's playroom listening. Tomorrow, we get serious, Nicholas whispered. What do you mean? Naomi asked. She's tougher than the others, so we have to break her harder, Nathan said with a grin. Maya's blood ran cold inside the playroom. The triplets laughed, a sound too wicked for children so young. Maya leaned her forehead against the door for a moment, eyes closing. They were plotting war. And for the first time, she wondered if Damien Steele's warning hadn't been arrogance at all, but prophecy. Still, she whispered under her breath, "Bring it on." The triplets are preparing their most ruthless tricks yet. Maya has proven she's strong, but tomorrow she'll face a challenge that might finally crack her. The Steele mansion was quiet, too quiet. Maya Carter had learned in less than 48 hours that silence in this house didn't mean peace. It meant the triplets were plotting. And sure enough, when she opened the door to the playroom, her suspicions were confirmed. The room looked like a battlefield. Glitter bombs had gone off across the floor, coating the rug in sparkling dust. Feathers from shredded pillows floated in the air like snowfall. And at the center of it all, the triplets stood shoulder to shoulder, smug and daring. "Do you like our art project?" Nicholas asked, spreading his arms wide. Naomi giggled. "We call it Goodbye, Nanny." Nathan added, "Bet you quit before dinner." Maya stood in the doorway, eyes sweeping across the carnage. Any other nanny would have screamed, cried, or stormed out. But instead she smiled, a small, dangerous smile that made the triplets blink. "Nice try," she said, stepping into the room. "But I've seen worse." "Worse?" Nicholas frowned. "Much worse," Maya said, dropping her bag and rolling up her sleeves. "You think this is chaos? Please, this is child's play, literally." And with that, she marched straight to the supply closet, grabbed a vacuum, and shoved it into Nathan's hands. "You clean up the feathers." His mouth dropped open. "Me? Yes, you. Naomi, glitter duty. Nicholas, pillows. Move." The triplets stood frozen, caught between shock and disbelief. No one had ever dared order them around. No one. From the doorway, a low voice cut through the tension. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Miss Carter?" Maya stiffened. Damien Steele leaned against the door frame, arms folded, his sharp gray eyes narrowing at the scene. His suit jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up, but even casual he radiated authority, the kind that made people forget how to breathe. "I'm teaching your children consequences," Maya said evenly. Damien's gaze flicked to the triplets, then back to her. "You're wasting your time. They don't listen." "That's because no one makes them." His brows furrowed. "Excuse me?" Maya turned fully toward him, fire sparking in her eyes. "Your children act like this because they've been allowed to. You give them money, a mansion, anything they want, but not what they need. They need boundaries. They need love. They need you." The room went silent. Even the triplets stopped fidgeting, eyes wide. No one spoke to Damien Steele like that. Ever. Damien's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable. "You presume much for someone who's been here less than 2 days." "I don't presume," Maya shot back. "I see what's in front of me. 3 brilliant kids who are screaming for attention and a father too busy hiding behind his empire to notice." His eyes flashed cold and sharp. "Careful." But Maya didn't back down. She stepped closer, closing the space between them until she had to tilt her head to look up at him. "You want me to be careful? Fine. Fire me. But don't you dare tell me I'm wrong." Damien stared at her, gray eyes searching, measuring. For a moment, Maya thought she had gone too far, that he'd snap his fingers and have her escorted out of the house before she could even grab her bag. But then, something flickered in his gaze, something almost human. The corner of his mouth twitched, though whether it was anger or amusement, she couldn't tell. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Maya said softly. The triplets exchanged glances, whispering furiously. They had never seen anyone stand toe-to-toe with their father before. Damien straightened, pulling his composure back around him like armor. "Clean this mess," he ordered the children, his voice firm. "But," Naomi started, "now." His tone brooked no argument. For the first time, the triplets obeyed without protest. Maya blinked, surprised. Had her defiance actually cracked his icy exterior enough to make him step up as a father, even if only for a moment? Damien lingered in the doorway, his gaze still locked on hers. "We'll see how long you last, Miss Carter." Maya met his stare with steady resolve. "As long as it takes." Later that evening, Maya found herself in the garden, catching her breath under the twilight sky. The mansion's lights glowed behind her, the sound of the triplets finally settling into bed drifting faintly through the windows. She had pushed Damien Steele. Hard. Too hard, maybe. But she couldn't regret it. Someone had to tell him the truth, even if he hated her for it. "Maya Carter," she whispered to herself, shaking her head with a laugh. "You really don't know how to keep quiet, do you?" A shadow fell across the lawn. Maya turned to see Damien standing at the edge of the garden, his hands in his pockets, watching her. "Most people fear me," he said quietly. "You challenge me." Maya swallowed, but forced herself to hold his gaze. "Maybe fear isn't what you need, Mr. Steele." The air between them thickened, charged, like a storm about to break. His gray eyes locked on hers, and for the briefest second, the cold billionaire facade slipped. She glimpsed something raw beneath it: loneliness, regret, maybe even pain. Then just as quickly, the mask snapped back into place. Damien turned, his voice curt. "Don't be late tomorrow." And he walked away, leaving Maya standing in the garden, heart pounding. She had come here for a job. She hadn't expected war, and she certainly hadn't expected sparks. But sparks had flown, and if she wasn't careful, those sparks could burn them both alive. Damien Steele and Maya Carter's war has officially begun. Neither is willing to back down, and the chemistry crackling between them is more dangerous than either wants to admit. By the end of her third day, Maya Carter had already learned one unshakable truth about the Steele mansion. Its walls weren't just built from marble and stone. They were built from secrets, whispers, and judgment. She could feel it everywhere she walked, the housekeeper's eyes on her back when she passed, the way the butler, Mr. Reeves, stiffened whenever she entered a room. Even the chef, who had been polite on the first day, now muttered under his breath when she asked for the children's meals. It wasn't just dislike. It was something sharper, uglier. And she knew why. She had heard the whispers on her way through the grand hallway that morning. "She's not like the others. How long do you think she'll last? Steele will never allow it." Another maid's voice. "A black nanny in this house? She won't last until Friday." Maya had paused, her hands tightening around the laundry basket she carried. She wanted to snap, to call them out. But she bit her tongue. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here for the triplets, for the paycheck, for her mother. Still, the venom in their voices clung to her skin like smoke. By mid-morning, she was with Naomi in the playroom, braiding the little girl's hair as Nicholas and Nathan built towers with their Legos. For the first time, the children weren't trying to sabotage her. In fact, Naomi seemed oddly calm in her lap. "Why are people mean to you?" Naomi asked suddenly, her small voice cutting into the quiet. Maya's hands paused. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Naomi twisted to look at her, big hazel eyes serious. "I heard Mrs. Delgado say you don't belong here. That Daddy won't keep you. Why not?" The question struck like a blade. For a moment, Maya didn't know how to answer. How do you explain prejudice to an 8-year-old who had never wanted for anything? She smoothed Naomi's hair gently. "Sometimes, people don't like others because they're different. Different skin, different background, different story. Is that bad?" Naomi frowned. "No," Maya said firmly, her throat tight. "Being different is what makes you strong." Naomi was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I hope you don't leave. I like you better than the others." Maya's heart squeezed. Before she could answer, the door slammed open. Claudia Steele. Damien's younger sister swept into the room like a storm in heels, her diamond necklace catching the sunlight. Her hair was perfect, her silk dress clinging to her frame, and her lips twisted in a sneer the moment she saw Maya. "Well," Claudia said, her voice dripping with disdain, "so the rumors are true." Maya straightened slowly, keeping her expression neutral. "Good morning, Miss Steele." Claudia's laugh was sharp. "Don't play polite with me. I told Damien not to drag this house into scandal, but clearly he's lost his mind." Naomi frowned. "Aunt Claudia, don't be mean." Claudia's eyes narrowed at her niece before snapping back to Maya. "Let me make one thing clear, Miss Carter. You're a passing phase, a mistake, and I will personally see to it that you don't humiliate this family any longer than you already have." Maya's blood boiled, but she forced her voice to stay even. "With respect, Ms. Steele, I'm here for the children, not your approval." Claudia stepped closer, heels clicking against the floor, her face inches from Maya's. "You don't belong here. You never will. And when Damien realizes it, he'll throw you out like all the others, only faster." Nicholas jumped to his feet, glaring at his aunt. "Stop it! She's not going anywhere!" Nathan added, "Yeah, she's tougher than you think." The room froze. Maya blinked, stunned. The triplets? Defending her? Claudia's face reddened, her lips curling in disgust. "Unbelievable. Damien will hear about this." She spun on her heel and stormed out, leaving tension crackling in her wake. Maya exhaled slowly, her hands trembling despite herself. Claudia Steele was worse than she'd imagined, a woman who wore her racism and elitism like perfume, and now Maya had a new enemy in the mansion. That evening, Maya carried a tray of tea down the hall, only to hear voices drifting from Damien's study. She paused, her heart hammering as she recognized Claudia's sharp tone. "She doesn't belong here, Damien. The staff is whispering, the neighbors are whispering. Do you know what the tabloids will do when they find out you've hired a black nanny for your children? It's humiliating." Maya's chest clenched. Damien's reply was quieter, but no less firm. "I don't care about gossip." Claudia scoffed. "You should. Your empire depends on reputation. And what about the children? What happens when they're mocked at school? Or when people start assuming—" "Enough, Claudia!" Damien's voice cracked like thunder. "The children like her. They respect her, and if she can keep them in line, she stays." Maya's breath caught. Claudia hissed, "You'll regret this." Footsteps approached, and Maya scrambled away before she could be caught eavesdropping. But her pulse still thundered in her ears. Damien had defended her, not openly, not warmly, but enough to keep her in the mansion. For now. That night, after putting the triplets to bed, Maya collapsed onto her mattress in the small guest room she'd been given. The weight of the day pressed down on her chest. Claudia's venom, the staff's whispers, the children's fragile trust. She stared at the ceiling, whispering to herself, "You can do this, Maya. You will do this." But in the silence of the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that Claudia wasn't finished. And she was right. Because at that very moment, in the east wing of the mansion, Claudia Steele was dialing a number on her phone. Her lips curved in a cruel smile as she whispered into the receiver, "It's time. Tomorrow we make her crack." Claudia is scheming, the staff is against Maya, and the mansion is about to become a battlefield. But Maya has gained something powerful, unexpected loyalty from the triplets themselves. The sun blazed high over the Steele estate the next afternoon, painting the manicured lawns in gold. For once, Maya thought the day might actually be normal. The triplets had been surprisingly cooperative at breakfast, Nathan even complimenting the pancakes she made. But normal was a luxury Maya would never get in this house. By midday, she was chasing the kids across the vast backyard, the manicured hedges framing the sprawling estate like a fortress. Nicholas was pretending to be a superhero, Nathan had declared himself the villain, and Naomi, ever the queen, was the princess demanding protection. Maya was just catching her breath when she noticed Naomi wandering toward the garden fountain, away from her brothers. Maya frowned. The child's curious eyes were fixed on something glinting in the grass. "Naomi, stay close," Maya called. But the little girl didn't listen. She knelt in the grass, reaching for the shiny object. That was when Maya's heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a toy. It was a snake, a coiled copperhead, its scales gleaming, its tongue flicking in the sun, inches from Naomi's hand. "Naomi, don't move!" Maya's voice cracked like a whip. The child froze, eyes wide, tears welling. The boys shouted, "What's wrong?" rushing forward. "Stay back!" Maya barked, her blood roaring in her ears. Her body moved before her mind caught up. She sprinted across the grass, her feet pounding against the earth. She reached Naomi just as the snake hissed, its body coiling tighter. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. She didn't think, she acted. With one swift motion, she scooped Naomi into her arms and spun away from the grass, shielding the girl with her body. The snake struck, hitting the empty air where Naomi's hand had been. Maya stumbled back, clutching the terrified child, but the danger wasn't over. The copperhead slithered toward them, fast, its tongue darting. Nathan screamed. Nicholas grabbed a stick and brandished it, but his hands trembled. "Stay behind me," Maya ordered, lowering Naomi gently onto the grass behind her. Her pulse thundered as the snake coiled, ready to strike again. She grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a fallen tree branch. It was heavy, rough, but it would have to do. The snake lunged. Maya swung. The branch cracked against the grass, missing by inches. The snake hissed, circling, relentless. Sweat trickled down Maya's neck, but her grip didn't falter. She struck again, this time slamming the branch between them. The copperhead reared back, confused. Maya seized the moment. With a guttural cry, she pinned the snake's head beneath the branch, pressing down with all her strength. The creature writhed violently, its body thrashing, but she didn't let go. "Run to the house!" Maya shouted at the kids. "No, we won't leave you!" Nicholas cried. Maya gritted her teeth. "Go!" At last, Nathan grabbed his siblings and dragged them toward the patio doors. Maya pressed harder, every muscle straining, until the snake's thrashing slowed. With one last shove, she pinned it completely, her chest heaving, adrenaline burning through her veins. Finally, when the groundskeeper came running, pale-faced, Maya stepped back, letting him finish the job. The danger was over, but the damage was done. Back in the house, the triplets clung to Maya like vines, refusing to let go. Naomi buried her face in Maya's chest, sobbing, "You saved me. You saved me." Nathan, who usually teased her, whispered, "You're like a superhero." Nicholas simply held her hand, refusing to let go. Maya smoothed Naomi's hair, whispering, "You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you." But even as she comforted them, she felt her own hands trembling. She had faced fear before, but nothing like that. Not with 3 little lives depending on her. And then, the door slammed open. Damian Steele stormed in. His suit jacket was half off, his tie askew, his face pale as he scanned the children. "What happened?" All 3 triplets shouted at once. "There was a snake! Maya saved us!" "She fought it, Daddy. She fought it with a stick." Damian froze. His eyes snapped to Maya. She stood there, disheveled, sweat dampened, her arms still shaking faintly. For a long moment, he just stared at her. "You fought a copperhead?" His voice was low, disbelieving. Maya swallowed hard. "It was about to strike Naomi. I did what I had to do." The room went silent. Then slowly, Damian crossed the space between them. His hand lifted as if to touch her shoulder, but he stopped himself at the last second, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with something she couldn't quite read. "You risked your life," he said softly. "For them." Maya straightened, her chin high despite the trembling in her knees. "They're my responsibility. I'll protect them, no matter what." The words hung between them, charged, dangerous. For the first time, Damian Steele, the cold, untouchable millionaire, looked at her not as an employee, not as a nuisance, but as something else entirely. Something he hadn't expected. Something he didn't want to feel. Before he could answer, Claudia's voice echoed from the doorway. "Well, isn't this touching?" Maya's stomach dropped. Claudia leaned against the frame, a glass of wine in her hand, her lips curling in a smile that promised destruction. "But don't think for a second this little stunt will save you. One way or another you will be gone from this house." And then she took a slow sip, her eyes glittering with malice. Maya proves herself in an action scene, winning the children's loyalty and Damian's reluctant respect. But Claudia, furious at Maya's growing influence, is plotting her next attack. The mansion felt different after the snake incident. The triplets, once mischievous and rebellious, now followed Maya like shadows. Naomi refused to sleep unless Maya tucked her in. Nathan demanded bedtime stories only from her, and Nicholas insisted she sit at the table with them during meals. It was clear they had chosen her, and that terrified Claudia Steele. 3 nights later, Claudia decided it was time to strike. Maya had just settled Naomi into bed when Mr. Reeves, the butler, appeared stiffly at the doorway. "Miss Carter, Miss Steele requests your presence in the East Salon." Maya frowned. "At this hour?" He didn't answer. He just adjusted his tie, his eyes flicking over her with something like pity, before he turned away. Every instinct screamed trap. But Maya wasn't one to run. She kissed Naomi's forehead, whispered goodnight, and followed. The East Salon glowed with chandeliers, its velvet drapes drawn tight. Claudia lounged on the settee in a crimson gown, a glass of wine dangling carelessly from her hand. Several of Damian's business associates sat in leather chairs, all men, their eyes sharp and curious as Maya walked in. "Maya Carter," Claudia purred, rising to her feet. "Gentlemen, may I present the new nanny of the Steele children?" Maya froze. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't a meeting. It was a stage. Claudia's smile was venom. "Maya is quite unique compared to our previous staff. Wouldn't you agree?" The men chuckled lowly, their gazes heavy. Maya's fists curled at her sides. She understood exactly what Claudia was doing, parading her like some spectacle, hoping she'd crumble under humiliation. One man leaned back in his chair, smirking. "I'll admit, Damian always did have a taste for the exotic." Heat flared in Maya's cheeks, anger boiling in her veins. She wanted to shout, to lash out, but she forced her voice to stay steady. "I'm here for the children, nothing else." Claudia's smile widened, shark-like. "Of course, dear. But forgive me, you just seem so comfortable. Some of us are curious how you managed to last when no one else could." Another man chimed in. "Maybe Damian has other reasons for keeping her around." His tone was suggestive, his eyes crawling over her. Maya's stomach churned. That was the heart of Claudia's trap. To paint her as something indecent, a woman sleeping her way into security. The guilt trip Claudia was laying was clear. If Maya defended herself too harshly, she'd look disrespectful. If she stayed quiet, she'd look guilty. The men laughed again, sipping their brandy, but Maya stepped forward, her voice slicing through their noise. "Gentlemen, I don't care for your insinuations. I'm not here for Mr. Steele. I'm here because 3 children need stability, something your jokes won't provide." The laughter died. For a moment the room stilled, but Claudia's eyes glittered, pleased. She wasn't finished. Bold words, Maya, she said silkily. But let's not pretend. The help doesn't usually speak so freely in this house. And then she raised her voice, sharp and clear, as Damien entered the salon. Damien, darling, you didn't tell us your nanny has such spirit, or should I say, such ambition. All eyes turned. Damien paused at the threshold, his gaze shifting from Claudia to Maya. The weight of the moment pressed heavy on Maya's chest. Claudia crossed the room to her brother, looping her arm through his. I was just telling the gentleman how remarkable Maya is. She's lasted longer than all the others. Don't you think it's suspicious? The way she charms the children, and maybe more than just the children? The implication was sharp, poisonous. Maya's breath caught. This was it, Claudia's ultimate play. Make Damien believe Maya was scheming, seducing her way into his life. The men chuckled again, fueling the fire. Damien's eyes fixed on Maya. They were unreadable, piercing, as silence stretched. And then Claudia, with a mocking smile, whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Tell me, brother, when was the last time you had a woman under your roof who wasn't after your money?" Gasps rippled. Maya's throat tightened, humiliation clawing at her. Her fists curled so tight her nails cut into her palms. But before she could defend herself, Damien stepped forward. His voice was low, dangerous. "Enough, Claudia." The room froze, but Claudia only smirked wider. "Oh, Damien, don't be blind. She's using you, and I'll prove it." And then she snapped her fingers. The doors burst open. A photographer entered, camera in hand, and in a flash, the bulb exploded with light, catching Maya in the frame, standing beside Damien, with Claudia smiling like a queen. The click of the shutter sealed it. Maya's blood ran cold. Claudia's trap wasn't just for the family, it was for the press. Claudia sets Maya up in a scandalous way, staging her as Damien's affair in front of witnesses and a photographer. Tomorrow, the tabloids will explode, and Maya's reputation and job may be destroyed. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Maya's small guest room, but it didn't bring peace. Instead, the sound of frantic voices echoed down the halls. The mansion, usually a fortress of quiet control, buzzed with chaos. Maya sat up slowly, dread curling in her stomach. She didn't need to guess. She knew. Claudia's trap had sprung. Moments later, Mr. Reeves appeared at her door, his expression tight. "Miss Carter," he said stiffly. "Mr. Steele requests your presence in the study. Immediately." Maya's heart pounded. She dressed quickly and walked the long, silent corridor, the weight of judgment heavy in the very air. As she reached the study, she saw it. The headline, splashed across the front page of the Daily Chronicle, bold black letters screamed, "Millionaire Damien Steele's secret, nanny or mistress." Below it, a grainy photo, the one Claudia had staged, captured Maya standing close to Damien, his gaze locked on her in that charged moment, Claudia smirking in the background like the devil herself. Maya's stomach turned to stone. Inside the study, Damien stood at his desk, the paper crumpled in his fist. His jaw was clenched so tightly she thought it might crack. The triplets huddled on the couch, their faces pale. Naomi clutched her doll, her little eyes wide with confusion. Claudia, of course, stood in the corner, sipping her coffee, looking far too pleased with herself. Damien's eyes cut to Maya. They were sharp, stormy, unreadable. "Explain." The word cracked like thunder. Maya swallowed hard, her hands trembling at her sides. "It's not what it looks like. Claudia staged it. She invited her friends, brought in that photographer, cornered me. You know I wouldn't—" Claudia's laugh sliced through her defense. "Oh, please, spare us the sob story. You've been playing your part beautifully, Maya, the loyal nanny, the selfless savior. But the truth is obvious. You're aiming higher than your paycheck." Maya's chest burned. "That's a lie. You know it." Claudia's smile was poison. Then why did you let yourself be photographed like that? So close to my brother? So comfortable? The guilt trip stung. For a moment, Maya's throat closed. She had no proof, no way to untangle Claudia's careful web. Damien slammed his fist on the desk. Enough! The room went still. The children flinched. Naomi whimpered, and Maya instinctively moved toward her. The little girl grabbed Maya's hand, whispering, "Don't go! Please don't go!" Maya's heart broke. She wanted to scoop Naomi up, shield her from all of it. But Claudia's smirk widened at the sight. "See?" Claudia purred. "She's already manipulating them. She's dug in deep. This is what I warned you about, Damien. The longer she stays, the worse it gets." Damien closed his eyes, pinching the bridge of his nose. His silence was worse than anger. It was distance. It was doubt. Maya's chest squeezed. "I didn't come here to scheme. I didn't come here to steal. I came here to work, to take care of your children when no one else could. And if you can't see that by now, then maybe your sister's right. You'll never see it." The words tumbled out sharper than she intended, laced with hurt, with pride. For a moment, the mask slipped from Damien's face. His eyes flicked to her, and something raw, something almost guilty flashed there. But Claudia swooped in like a hawk. "You hear that, Damien? She's already turning on you. First it's sympathy, then it's entitlement, and then—" "Claudia, get out." Damien's voice was ice. Her smirk faltered. "What?" "I said get out." For the first time, Claudia looked shaken, but she recovered quickly, tossing her hair with a scoff. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." She swept out of the study, her heels echoing like gunshots on the marble. The door closed, leaving silence behind. Maya stood frozen, the children clutching her hands. Damien's eyes bore into her, his chest heaving. At last, he spoke, softer than she expected. "Maya." Her breath caught. But before he could finish, the intercom buzzed. Mr. Reeves's voice echoed through the room. "Sir, the press has gathered outside the gates. They're demanding a statement about the nanny scandal." Maya's blood ran cold. The tabloids hadn't just whispered, they'd roared, and now the world was watching. Damien's gaze locked on her again, storm raging in his eyes. "You have 10 minutes, he said quietly, before the cameras start rolling. Maya's throat tightened. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to decide whether she would walk out those gates and face the storm, or be dragged down by it. The photo has gone public. The press is swarming. Claudia has thrown gasoline on the fire, and Damien gives Maya 10 minutes to decide her fate before the cameras. The front gates of the Steele estate had transformed into a circus. Cameras flashed, reporters jostled for space, microphones waved like weapons. The hum of shouting voices grew louder as Maya peered through the high windows of the study, her heart slamming against her ribs. The scandal had exploded faster than wildfire. Headlines screamed across every major outlet. Millionaire's mystery nanny. Damien Steele and the woman who broke the rules. And the cruelest one. Gold-digging nanny or savior? Maya clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. Every word was a dagger. Behind her, Damien paced like a caged lion, his suit immaculate, but his composure cracking. He wasn't used to losing control of the narrative. And right now, the narrative was burning his empire. "You're not going out there," he muttered, finally, his voice rough. "They'll eat you alive." Maya turned sharply. "If I don't, Claudia wins. They'll think she's right, that I'm hiding something." Damien stopped pacing. His eyes, those stormy, unreadable eyes, met hers. For the first time, there was no coldness, only worry. "Maya, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Let me handle it." She shook her head, her voice trembling but fierce. "Yes, I do. Because this isn't just about you or your empire. It's about me, my name, my integrity. Do you have any idea what it means, as a black woman, to have my reputation dragged through the mud like this? To be painted as some scheming mistress who clawed her way into your life? Her voice broke on the last words. For a moment, silence stretched heavy between them. Damien's jaw tightened, guilt flashing across his face. But before he could answer, Mr. Reeves entered quietly. "Sir, the press is demanding a statement. If you don't address them, they'll escalate." Maya took a deep breath. Her decision was made. "I'll face them." Damien's brows furrowed. "Maya." "I said I'll face them." She lifted her chin, every nerve screaming with fear, but her resolve burning like fire. "Because if I don't, they'll keep writing my story without me, and I refuse to let Claudia or anyone else decide who I am." The gates creaked open and the storm roared. Flashes exploded instantly, blinding her. The reporters surged forward, their voices crashing into one another. "Miss Carter, are you Mr. Steele's mistress? Did you sleep your way into the mansion? Are you planning to marry Damien Steele for his fortune? Is it true you've bewitched the children?" Each question was worse than the last, their tones sharp, mocking, cruel. Maya's pulse thundered, but she stood tall, her shoulders squared, her voice carrying over the noise. "No." The crowd stilled for a fraction of a second, surprised by her steadiness. Maya stepped closer to the microphones, her hands trembling only slightly. "I am not Damien Steele's mistress. I am not here for his money, his power, or his empire. I am here for 3 children who needed stability after being abandoned by everyone else. That's it. That's the truth." The reporters shouted again, pushing forward. "Then why the photo, Miss Carter? Why the intimacy?" Maya's eyes burned as she spoke. "Because people like to twist the truth when they don't want to face it. Because some would rather paint me as scandalous than admit I've done what no one else could. I've cared for these children when others ran. I've stood by them through tantrums, nightmares, and even danger. That photo? It's not evidence of sin. It's evidence of one moment, taken out of context, and weaponized to destroy me." A ripple moved through the crowd. Some reporters lowered their mics slightly, uncertainty flickering across their faces. But others pressed harder. "What makes you so different, Maya? Why should we believe you?" Maya's throat tightened. She could feel the judgment, the centuries of prejudice pressing down, demanding she prove her worth tenfold, just to be seen as equal. She took a deep breath. "You don't have to believe me," she said softly, but firmly. "But you can believe them." And she stepped aside. Behind her, the triplets appeared. Naomi clutching Nicholas's hand, Nathan standing tall despite his small frame. Their presence was electric. Naomi's voice, small but clear, pierced the crowd. "She saved me." The reporters quieted instantly. Tears glistened in Naomi's eyes as she spoke. "There was a snake. A big one. It was going to bite me, but Maya fought it. She saved me. She always saves us." Nathan chimed in, his voice shaky but proud. "She's not a liar. She's our nanny. The best one we ever had." Nicholas added fiercely, "If you make her leave, then you're all meaner than Aunt Claudia." Gasps rippled. Cameras clicked furiously. Maya's chest swelled and broke at once. She crouched, wrapping her arms around the children, whispering, "Thank you." Behind them, at the gates, Damien stood watching, his face unreadable, but his fists were clenched, his jaw tight. For once, he wasn't the one commanding the narrative. Maya was. The crowd erupted again, but this time the tone had shifted. Some questions were still sharp, but others softened. "Miss Carter, how long have you been caring for the children? Would you say you've become like family to them?" The press had smelled blood earlier, but now they smelled something else. A story of resilience, of scandal turning into defiance. Maya stood tall again, her voice clear. "You can write what you want, but the truth will not change. I am not ashamed of who I am, and I will not be silenced. If you want a story, write this. I am here, I am capable, and I will not break." The words echoed, bold, daring. The reporters roared, flashes lighting the air like lightning. But as Maya turned back toward the mansion, a chill raced down her spine, because standing at the far edge of the crowd, half hidden in the shadows of the trees, was Claudia. Her lips curved into a slow, venomous smile as she raised her phone, tapping the screen. And Maya knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Maya takes control at the press conference, earning respect, but Claudia watches from the sidelines, already planning her next more dangerous strike. The applause of cameras and murmurs of sympathy still lingered in Maya's ears long after the mansion gates slammed shut behind her. The press conference had ended in her favor, or at least that's what Damien's head of PR insisted. Social media buzzed with hashtags: Maya strong, nanny not mistress, triplets defend Maya. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe, but peace never lasted in Damien Steele's world. Claudia's shadow always lurked. At that very moment, across the city, Claudia sipped red wine in her penthouse, her phone buzzing with alerts. She scrolled through the headlines, her painted lips twisting with fury as she watched Maya's speech replay again and again. That little girl with fire in her eyes had managed to flip the narrative. The press, those vultures she thought she had in her grip, were now cautiously leaning in Maya's favor. Even Damien hadn't stepped in to silence her. He had let her shine. That betrayal, that insult, burned like acid in Claudia's veins. She hurled the crystal glass against the wall, crimson streaking down like blood. "Fine," she whispered coldly, her eyes gleaming. "If the nanny wants a war, she'll get one." Back at the Steele mansion, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, the triplets nestled against her. Naomi had fallen asleep with her small hand clutching Maya's arm, as if afraid she'd vanish. Nathan and Nicholas whispered softly to one another, their eyelids dropping. Maya stroked their hair, exhaustion pulling at her bones, but her heart, heavy and raw, still burned with quiet defiance. She had stood her ground today. For them. For herself. The door creaked open. Damien entered silently, his tie loosened, his shoulders slumped. For once, the ruthless millionaire looked human, vulnerable. "They adore you," he murmured, his gaze on the children. Maya met his eyes. "They need someone they can trust. And they trust you more than anyone." His voice was low, almost hoarse. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them. A fragile thread of connection. But Maya quickly looked away, refusing to let her emotions spiral into dangerous territory. "Don't," she whispered, her throat tight. "Don't look at me like that. Not when the whole world is ready to crucify me for just existing here." Damien's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Instead, he crossed the room, brushed his hand gently over Naomi's hair, and left without another word. Maya exhaled shakily. Whatever was building between them, it was dangerous for both of them. The next morning, the first blow struck. The tabloids were merciless. Nanny's secret past, criminal record uncovered. Damien Steele's angel or a fraud. Maya froze as she saw her face plastered across the front pages. Words screamed in bold black letters. Maya Carter, arrested in college protest turned violent. Her stomach dropped. She remembered it vividly. The campus protest, her fight for racial justice, the night it turned chaotic when the police stormed in. She had been arrested, handcuffed. And though the charges were later dropped, the mugshot remained. Now it was everywhere. Damien stormed into the breakfast hall, fury radiating off him. "Claudia!" he spat, slamming the paper down. "She did this!" Maya's hands shook as she touched the headline. "It's true," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was arrested, but I wasn't guilty. I never broke the law." "Don't explain to me," Damien cut in, softer now. His eyes burned, not at her, but at the situation. Explain to them, because they don't care about truth. They care about scandal. Nathan looked up from his cereal, his little voice trembling. Maya's not bad. Nicholas slammed his spoon down. Who cares what dumb newspapers say? She's ours. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. But before she could speak, Damien's phone buzzed. He answered sharply, then his face darkened. It's worse, he muttered after hanging up. A protest group from your past. They're claiming you were the leader, that you incited violence. And Claudia, she's pushing it. Maya staggered back. She's twisting everything. Damien's hand clenched around his phone until his knuckles turned white. She wants to bury you, to make sure you're unhireable, to make sure no one trusts you, not even me. For the first time, Maya saw something break in him. Rage. Not at her, but for her. That night, the attack came. The Steel Mansion's alarm blared suddenly, lights flashing through the halls. Maya jolted awake, the triplets screaming in fear. She grabbed Naomi, Nathan, and Nicholas, pulling them close. Damien burst into the room, his voice sharp, commanding, "Stay with them!" "Damien, what's happening?" "Security breach," he snapped, grabbing a weapon from the safe hidden behind the bookshelf. His voice dropped into a deadly calm. "Claudia escalated!" The children cried harder, clinging to Maya as Damien disappeared into the corridor with armed guards. Maya's heart pounded. She could hear shouting outside, the sound of footsteps, glass breaking. For a terrifying moment, she thought the mansion itself was under siege. She clutched the triplets tighter, whispering, "It's okay. I've got you. Nothing's going to happen to you. Not while I'm here." But deep down, fear slashed through her. Because Claudia wasn't just fighting with words anymore. She was fighting with chaos. And Maya wasn't sure how much longer she could endure the war. Claudia weaponizes Maya's past, twisting her arrest record to turn the public against her. The smear campaign escalates into a physical security breach at Damien's mansion, hinting that Claudia will stop at nothing, even violence, to destroy Maya. The mansion was chaos. Sirens blared. Security teams stormed through the halls, and the children clung to Maya as if letting go would mean losing her forever. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. Damien had vanished down the corridor, his voice barking orders like a general in battle. Outside, the screech of tires and the clash of voices painted a picture of a siege. And Maya knew who was behind it. Claudia. The woman had gone too far. Minutes stretched like hours. Then Damien returned, his shirt streaked with dirt, his hair disheveled, but his presence radiating power. "It's over," he said grimly. "Claudia's been caught trespassing with private investigators she hired to break into the estate. She wanted to plant evidence, photos, files, that would frame you as a thief. She's in police custody now." Maya's breath hitched. Relief flooded her, but so did exhaustion. She pressed her forehead against Naomi's soft curls, whispering thanks under her breath. But Damien wasn't finished. His eyes burned as he looked at her, at the children, then back at her again. "She thought she could bury you," he said, his voice sharp, almost trembling. "But she underestimated you. You faced the press. You faced the hate. And you didn't break. You've done what no one else could. You've held this family together." Maya swallowed hard, emotion clogging her throat. "Damien, no, listen." He stepped closer, his voice raw. "I was wrong. About you. About everything. I thought I was protecting my children by keeping my distance, by keeping walls up. But you showed me that strength isn't in control. It's in trust. And I trust you." Her eyes widened, her heart slamming against her ribs. He lowered his voice, almost breaking. "I don't just trust you with them. I trust you with me." The children looked between them, sensing the shift in the air. Nathan wiped his tears with his small fist. "Daddy, are we keeping Maya?" Damien's lips twitched with a shaky smile. "If she'll stay." All three children turned to her with pleading eyes, their little voices blending together. "Please stay, Maya. Don't leave us. You're family now." Maya's defenses, built from years of rejection and survival, cracked wide open. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged them tight. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. "Not now. Not ever." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Claudia's arrest made headlines, her reputation shredded by her own schemes. Damien's legal team moved swiftly, ensuring the charges stuck. For once, the world wasn't spinning with scandal around Maya. It was spinning with support. Maya Strong trended for days. Mothers, nannies, and women of color across the country rallied around her story. What was meant to break her became her badge of honor. And Damien? The ruthless millionaire began to change, slowly but visibly. He started joining the Triplets for breakfast, no longer hiding behind boardroom calls. He let himself laugh more. The cold steel in his voice softened whenever Maya was near. One evening, after dinner, Maya found him in the garden, watching the children chase fireflies. The moonlight softened his features, and for the first time, he looked less like a billionaire giant and more like a man, just a man searching for peace. "You're different now," Maya said quietly. Damien looked at her, a shadow of his old arrogance tugging at his lips. "Or maybe I'm finally seeing clearly." Her breath caught. "Maya," he said, stepping closer, his voice deep but unguarded. "I don't want you here just as the nanny. I want you here as my partner, my equal, my—" She held up a trembling hand. "Damien, don't say it if you don't mean it." His gaze locked on hers, unwavering. "I've never meant anything more." And then, before she could stop herself, before fear could build its walls again, Maya leaned in. Their lips met, fierce and desperate, years of loneliness and walls crashing down all at once. For the first time in her life, Maya Carter allowed herself to believe she could have it all: love, family, and a place she truly belonged. Months later, the Steele estate wasn't the same house of shadows it had once been. Laughter filled its halls, not silence. The Triplets thrived under Maya's care and Damien's newfound warmth. The media moved on to other scandals, but one story remained: a black woman who stood against power, prejudice, and hate, and carved a space for herself where no one thought she belonged. On a sunny morning, as the children ran across the lawn chasing butterflies, Damien took Maya's hand. "You did the impossible," he said softly. Maya smiled through tears, her voice steady. "No, we did." And for once, the billionaire who thought he needed no one finally admitted he needed her most of all. Maya Carter walked into a mansion where no black nanny had lasted and left as something far greater: family, strength, and love woven into her very being. She wasn't a scandal. She wasn't a stereotype. She was resilience itself. Damien Steele, once untouchable and cold, found redemption in her fire. The Triplets, once lost in chaos, found stability and joy in her arms. And Claudia? She faded into the shadows of her own destruction. The war ended not in hate, but in love. Because sometimes the greatest rebellion against prejudice and power is simply refusing to break. What would you have done if you were in Maya's shoes? Would you have walked away when the world turned against you, or stood your ground like she did? If Maya and Damien's story kept you hooked until the very end, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe for more powerful billionaire romance stories and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next scandal, twist, or love story. And remember, sometimes the most impossible love stories are the ones worth fighting for. The mansion was chaos. Sirens blared, security teams stormed through the halls, and the children clung to Maya as if letting go would mean losing her forever. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. Damien had vanished down the corridor, his voice barking orders like a general in battle. Outside, the screech of tires and the clash of voices painted a picture of a siege, and Maya knew who was behind it. Claudia. The woman had gone too far. Minutes stretched like hours. Then Damien returned, his shirt streaked with dirt, his hair disheveled, but his presence radiating power. "It's over," he said grimly. "Claudia's been caught trespassing with private investigators she hired to break into the estate. She wanted to plant evidence, photos, files, that would frame you as a thief. She's in police custody now." Maya's breath hitched. Relief flooded her, but so did exhaustion. She pressed her forehead against Naomi's soft curls, whispering thanks under her breath. But Damien wasn't finished. His eyes burned as he looked at her, at the children, then back at her again. "She thought she could bury you," he said, his voice sharp, almost trembling. "But she underestimated you. You faced the press. You faced the hate. And you didn't break. You've done what no one else could. You've held this family together." Maya swallowed hard, emotion clogging her throat. "Damien?" "No. Listen." He stepped closer, his voice raw. "I was wrong. About you." "About everything. I thought I was protecting my children by keeping my distance, by keeping walls up. But you showed me that strength isn't in control. It's in trust. And I trust you." Her eyes widened, her heart slamming against her ribs. He lowered his voice, almost breaking. "I don't just trust you with them. I trust you with me." The children looked between them, sensing the shift in the air. Nathan wiped his tears with his small fist. "Daddy, are we keeping Maya?" Damien's lips twitched with a shaky smile. "If she'll stay." All three children turned to her with pleading eyes, their little voices blending together. "Please stay, Maya. Don't leave us. You're family now." Maya's defenses, built from years of rejection and survival, cracked wide open. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged them tight. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. "Not now. Not ever." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Claudia's arrest made headlines, her reputation shredded by her own schemes. Damien's legal team moved swiftly, ensuring the charges stuck. For once, the world wasn't spinning with scandal around Maya. It was spinning with support. Maya Strong trended for days. Mothers, nannies, and women of color across the country rallied around her story. What was meant to break her became her badge of honor. And Damien? The ruthless millionaire began to change. Slowly, but visibly. He started joining the Triplets for breakfast, no longer hiding behind boardroom calls. He let himself laugh more. The cold steel in his voice softened whenever Maya was near. One evening after dinner, Maya found him in the garden, watching the children chase fireflies. The moonlight softened his features, and for the first time, he looked less like a billionaire giant and more like a man. Just a man searching for peace. "You're different now," Maya said quietly. Damien looked at her, a shadow of his old arrogance tugging at his lips. "Or maybe I'm finally seeing clearly." Her breath caught. "Maya," he said, stepping closer, his voice deep but unguarded. "I don't want you here just as the nanny. I want you here as my partner, my equal, my—" She held up a trembling hand. "Damien, don't say it if you don't mean it." His gaze locked on hers, unwavering. "I've never meant anything more." And then, before she could stop herself, before fear could build its walls again, Maya leaned in. Their lips met, fierce and desperate, years of loneliness and walls crashing down all at once. For the first time in her life, Maya Carter allowed herself to believe she could have it all: love, family, and a place she truly belonged. Months later, the Steele estate wasn't the same house of shadows it had once been. Laughter filled its halls, not silence. The Triplets thrived under Maya's care and Damien's newfound warmth. The media moved on to other scandals. But one story remained: a black woman who stood against power, prejudice, and hate. and carved a space for herself where no one thought she belonged. On a sunny morning, as the children ran across the lawn chasing butterflies, Damien took Maya's hand. "You did the impossible," he said softly. Maya smiled through tears, her voice steady. "No, we did." And for once, the billionaire who thought he needed no one finally admitted he needed her most of all. Maya Carter walked into a mansion where no black nanny had lasted and left as something far greater. Family, strength, and love woven into her very being. She wasn't a scandal. She wasn't a stereotype. She was resilience itself. Damien Steele, once untouchable and cold, found redemption in her fire. The triplets, once lost in chaos, found stability and joy in her arms. And Claudia? She faded into the shadows of her own destruction. The war ended not in hate, but in love. Because sometimes, the greatest rebellion against prejudice and power. What would you have done if you were in Maya's shoes? Would you have walked away when the world turned against you, or stood your ground like she did? If Maya and Damien's story kept you hooked until the very end, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful billionaire romance stories, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next scandal, twist, or love story. And remember, sometimes the most impossible love stories are the ones worth fighting for.